Okay, so thank you all for joining us today for our Leader Talks webinar. So Leader Talks webinars is a tool to connect, educate, and inspire our network. So in this specific webinar, we have some very successful recent Schulich Leader Grads who will be providing some mentorship and inspiration to the network, just explaining some of their defining moments from their undergraduate experiences and where their career path leads. My name is Betty, and we have several, actually, amazing Schulich leaders who have carved a path for themselves and for their futures. So I'm very glad to share some of their stories today. So the first person I'd like to bring up is Nicole. So Nicole was a 2012 scholar in the inaugural class of Schulich Leaders. So she graduated from a 5-year co-op program, majoring in statistics at the University of Waterloo. And some of her aspirations is to become a data scientist. So Nicole, can you just share some of your top experiences or highlights in your undergraduate years?
Sure, thanks, Betty. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I guess I can just touch on 2 things briefly. The first really memorable experience was just doing the co-op program. So I had 5 co-op terms over the 5 years, and each one was very different. Each one was in a different city. So I had the opportunity to see the inside of a lot of different industries and companies, and also travel at the same time. So the most memorable experience I had was I did a 7-month internship in the Netherlands at a semiconductor company, and I was working with people from around the world on really complex technology, and I was able to apply a lot of the math and computer science that I had learned in the classroom in my job there, plus have the sort of cross-cultural experience, which is always useful. So that was a really memorable experience. And then I guess the second one I would touch on is just my research term. So last summer I did a 4-month research term in the Applied Mathematics department of the University of Waterloo. And I had a really good time learning what research was and sort of seeing what it would be like if I were to do a master's. That was sort of my goal, is to see if I could sort of see myself doing a master's in that area of applied math. And it was a really great experience, totally different than the industry, but it was really great to get that kind of comparison between academia and industry. So those were the highlights of my undergraduate career, I would say.
Wow, that's amazing. Just a quick question. So I know that you did a co-op program and then you did some research. Can you just speak about some of the people that you might have met in the industry that kind of inspired you or helped you filter what you want to do?
Sure, yeah. So my managers were really influential. They all had quite extensive educational backgrounds themselves. Most of them had masters or PhDs in engineering or statistics. So I would say that especially my manager at my 7-month co-op, he had a PhD in engineering, and most of my colleagues also did. And at the time, I wasn't really considering a master's or PhD, but working with them, learning about their sort of post-grad experiences and sort of learning where more education could take me, it sort of inspired me to consider doing a master's and even a PhD later on. So now I do have aspirations to continue, which I may not have had if I hadn't been inspired by my managers there. So.
Okay, that's really interesting. And did you come across any types of like challenges when you hit the work industry in the co-op term versus being in an academic environment?
Yeah, for sure. It's a totally different experience because it's a lot more fast-paced and unstructured. So, you know, someone who's very used to a structured, you know, assignment 1 is due next week, this exam is on this day, you don't really have to think on your feet quite as much. Everything's planned. But when you're working in the industry and when you have colleagues depending on you and random projects coming up every few days, you have to really think on your feet, and it becomes a lot more about your social skills and like the business mindset rather than your technical skills only.
All right, thank you so much, Nicole. Next we have Andy. So Andy was a 2013 scholar So he graduated a 4-year Bachelor's of Science in Molecular Biology at Simon Fraser University. He's an aspiring clinician scientist after completing the MD and PhD program at University of Toronto beginning fall of 2017, which is super exciting. So Andy, can you also share some of your highlights for your undergraduate experiences?
Absolutely. Can you hear me right now? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So actually, for me, all of my highlights have mostly been in extracurriculars. So I'll talk about a few things that I'm doing and maybe try to sprinkle in a few words of wisdom. I don't know how wise it'll be, but I'll give it my best. And so I guess I'll start in high school when I was really involved with the Red Cross, both volunteering and kind of as a co-leader of the club. And that was what really got me excited about, student leadership and starting organizations. But what was more important to me was how the principles of the Red Cross, where you're neutral and you help anyone who needs it, regardless of who they are or what they believe in or what they've done, those really resonated with me. And so when I went to SFU, I found out there was no Red Cross Club. And I was kind of browsing through all the other organizations, and I didn't find them to be that exciting. So I ended up calling out my friends and going for coffee, and then next thing you know, we're starting a club, and it's like, what are we getting ourselves into? But that, understandably, we had a pretty rough first year because it's a steep learning curve. But in second year, we were able to kind of gain enough momentum that we could start a new organization called the Red Cross Student Movement. And here we were reaching out into the community and kind of helping to train high school students in global issues and teach them how to start a club and run events and things like that. And so that is not as linear as I just described it. It's a lot messier in reality, but that was a really big part of my undergrad experience. And I guess I'll stop there for a moment to just reflect a little bit, and maybe there'll be some wisdom. So I think that university is really that opportunity to explore your passion, right? And if there's something that doesn't fit, I don't think it's a great idea to compromise and just be like, well, this will do. Because in the end, a lot of these student organizations, they're kind of tools that really enable you to make an impact. And so if you don't find the appropriate tool that allows you to make the difference that you want, then start one, right? And like that's something that for me has applied in research as well. So give a quick example of that. In first year summer, I worked at the BC Cancer Agency, and I was studying mitochondrial DNA in cancer, but really what I was doing was processing samples, thousands of samples, in the same procedure, just nonstop. And understandably, it got really boring, and my antidote to that was to read as many papers as I could, which I don't know if that was the best thing or the most fun, but that's what I did. And so I dove into the literature and sorry about that. I dove into the literature, and after reading a bunch of things, I came up with an idea to use this tool and dig into the existing data sets and get mitochondrial DNA information without having to process the samples. And this idea kind of sprung out of boredom, but I asked my supervisor if we could do it. She said, go for it. And that ended up becoming my honors thesis, and it became the paper that I'm kind of working on right now. So I just think that there's a lot that can come out of just almost that boredom and starting something and following those passions. And for me, kind of reflecting on it, like these are risks, and it's, you're taking a risk when you start something, but university initiatives are rarely actually high risk. Like no one's going to lose their job if it fails or anything. And so, the best case scenario is you have a really cool project and you have really influence other people, and the worst case scenario is that you learn a little bit, right? So if there's any takeaways, it's, don't compromise and start something and be open to taking the risks. So that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you, Andy. I have a question for you. So if you had to choose 3 things that starting your Red Cross movement at your university has taught you that you've applied today, that you can apply today, what would those 3 things be?
It taught me that I really didn't know what leadership meant in high school. And my model going in was very different from what my thoughts of it are now. And it taught me that, everyone that you work with, not just your superiors, but the people that you're supervising and the people that you're benefiting, they have so much to teach you. And if you value those interactions, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. The other thing I think is, when you go into it, don't expect that everything will go with flying colors, and be ready for those failures. Be ready for things to go wrong, and be ready to kind of do a post-mortem and figure out how to fix things based on the mistakes that you've made. So probably those three. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andy. Next we have Ella. So Ella was a 2013 scholar. So she graduated a 4-year Bachelor's of Engineering in Electrical Engineering at the University of Manitoba. So she is an aspiring electrical engineering PhD graduate, and she's beginning at Stanford University in fall of 2017. So Ella, please take the floor. So if you can just tell us a little bit about your undergraduate experience and some of your top experiences that you had.
Yeah, sure. So I have 3 main experiences that I'd like to talk about that for me were really formative and very positive experiences during my undergrad degree. So I'll talk about some academic experiences as well as some more social ones. So in terms of academics, I participated in 3 research terms over the course of my degree. 2 were here in Winnipeg at a medical research center for biomedical engineering. And then the 3rd was in Germany, and I was more focusing on environmental and sustainable engineering there. So my research term in Winnipeg, which was at the St. Boniface Hospital Research Center, it was very interesting for me because I had previous to starting my engineering degree, I'd done some research in high school, which was just in the field of biomedical research, so definitely more on the biological sciences side. And by continuing my research in a biomedical engineering lab, I was able to combine my interest in computer programming with my research background, which is more in biological sciences. And for me, that was a really transformative summer because I was able to see how those 2 interests could connect. And that made me really interested in pursuing graduate research in a field that was definitely focused on medical applications, but still combining my interest in computer science and engineering. So I think that even by taking on research experience or co-op terms in the summers during your degree that might be kind of a foreign topic for you or that seem like a little bit of a combination between 2 different fields, it can be a really great way to find an interest which might be a combination of different areas in science. And then my other research term, which was in Germany, that was an exchange that I did. And that was also an amazing experience for me, not just because of the research, but also being able to have that experience of living abroad for a summer, being able to experience another culture while actually living there. And then also taking part in the research experience at the same time was amazing, and I definitely encourage anyone who's starting a degree to look into doing a research term. And for me, I found it really valuable to do research rather than take courses while I was abroad, because it gave me a really good opportunity to, of course, work on the academics during the day, but also I had a lot of time to be able to explore the area, to get to know other students who are staying nearby, and to really take advantage of being in a different country as well. So I found that research term great as well. And then one final experience that was really positive for me during my undergraduate degree was joining several different student groups. And I think especially for me coming into the Faculty of Engineering at U of M, I didn't know anybody. And starting off right away in first year, I made an effort to join student groups, to join student councils, and it was a great way to meet people in the faculty. For example, I was the Vice Dic Finance, which is like treasurer on our Engineering Student Society for the past 2 years. And in that particular role, although it wasn't like technical related to engineering skills, I learned so much about finances, about managing bank accounts. I basically formed our $250,000 budget for the year. So it really taught me a lot about money management, which I think will be useful in my future career as well. So that was a great experience, both in terms of learning new skills, but also meeting new people and feeling like I was integrated in the faculty. And then this year, I also founded a student group, which we work on repairing used medical equipment that's donated to a group called International Hope Canada. So IHC has been around for about 15 years, and basically they receive donations of medical equipment from hospitals, and then they test that equipment and then make shipments to hospitals in third world countries. So I founded a group of engineering students who work on testing and repairing some of the electrical equipment. So this year, for example, we worked on fixing cauterizing machines, digital heart rate monitors, digital thermometers, EKGs, amongst other equipment. So it was really valuable experience for all the students who were participating because it was really good design work. and in terms of re-engineering. But at the same time, it was also really great that we were helping to recycle that hospital equipment so that it wasn't going to the landfill and it was going to people who really need it. And being able to see that shipment loaded away to Nigeria at the end of the year was really rewarding for all of us. So I think that was definitely a great experience for me to see how engineering, and in particular electrical engineering, which is like a hard science, like it's not really considered related to the humanities at all, but being able to see how that could have a really positive impact in kind of a more social area, and being able to help different people around the world was really great for me and the other students as well.
Thank you so much, Ella. I'm really glad that you touched upon the fact that you had some international experience in Germany. That's incredible. And I'm sure you're very prepared for Stanford University now because of that, for sure. And yeah, so thank you so much, Ella. And so next we have Miguel. So he too is also a 2013 scholar. He graduated from a 4-year Bachelor's of Engineering in Aerospace Engineering at Polytechnique Montreal at the University of Montreal. Sorry, I don't have good French skills here. But he is recently beginning his Master's of Science. So, Miguel, would you like to share your story? I think I have messed up your bio.
That's all right. You did very well. That's perfect. So, yeah, I hope you hear me well. Yeah?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Good. So, yeah, I wasn't sure about the internet connection because I'm actually in New Mexico right now. I'm participating in the rocket engineering competition. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I'd like to well talk to you about why what were the like highlights from my bachelor degree. So some of the events I did that were really striking during this 4 years were well, actually research internships. I did 2 of them. And at first, I really wanted to see if I liked research or industry more, and I ended up really liking it because I think just looking at problems and trying to find solutions is very interesting for me. I'm really curious, and I like to explore new ideas, so that really struck me. And I saw one of the internships I did during my 2nd year was in a small technology startup in Montreal. So that was really interesting too, because you could see how the like small company evolves and all that, and being part of that was really amazing. But definitely the most important implication I had during my my 4 years were being part of the rocket engineering group. So during my first semester, I was in the Polytechnique, and I was trying to find like what I would like to do and stuff like that. And I really wanted to be involved because I think you discover so much when you get involved into student projects, not only on a technical point of view, but also managing teams and getting to know people that share the same point of view with you. And yeah, really exchange a lot from that. So I joined the rocketry group because I was in aerospace engineering, and I found it was pretty interesting to see. So I ended up liking it a lot, getting really involved and putting a lot of time in the project that year. And one of the most amazing moments of my 4 years were, well, at the competition that year, we actually won in 2014 the competition. So that was really amazing, and still to this day is one of the highlights of my program. So I kept being involved, and I put much more time, and through the years my tasks evolved from being more technical and being the like aerodynamics expert all the way to being the general director. So right now I am kind of managing the group, and I'm making sure we have sponsorships and managing about a group of 60 people and making sure everything is right. So that's again very good experience to see everything from the technical to the team management and interpersonal challenges of the project.
Thank you so much, Miguel. I can definitely see some common ground between all of the Schulich leaders here today. So I can see that a lot of their experiences of their undergraduate time has been highlighted in some of their internships, their co-op internship or co-op experiences or extracurricular activities. where they can meet like-minded individuals, and in some senses has shaped their careers. So I'm very happy for all of you. Just going back quickly to Nicole, just taking a look back at your previous experiences, what were some of the biggest challenges you've encountered, and what would you have done differently knowing what you do now?
Okay, so I guess the first challenge was, I think when you're in grade 12 and you apply to a program, you have this unrealistic notion that you're tied to that program for 4 or 5 years, and that you cannot change your mind, and changing your mind is like equivalent to failure. And I think I told myself that in first year university. And looking back, I wish I hadn't seen it that way. I wish I had just told myself that if you don't enjoy something, don't do it. And I guess that's the message that I would say now is, if you're in a program that you are not loving after a few months or after a year, and you're not passionate about the topics that you're learning, don't stay in it. Like, for instance, with me, I was doing math and business double degree with Laurier, and although I liked all my courses, I found that I really was passionate about the computer science courses that I was taking at Waterloo, and there were a lot of things that I wanted to kind of dive more into at Waterloo, but I didn't have time because I was doing the BBA Laurier business courses as well. And so in second year, I made the decision to switch into just the math degree, and that's how I ended up graduating with a statistics degree, rather than having to spend 10 academic semesters graduating also with a business degree, which, you know, seems very like, oh, that's such a good degree, a double degree to have, and it would increase your potential in the industry. But in the end, I remember talking to the advisor, and he said, well, let me put it to you this way. Do you think you need 2 undergraduate degrees? And I just said, no, I don't think I need 2 undergraduate degrees. So I switched out of that program and was able to focus exclusively on computer science, statistics, all the things I really wanted to do. And that was a great decision, and I don't know why I stressed out so much about that when I started. I shouldn't have. And then secondly, just, I know from a first-year experience as well, finding your first internship or co-op, or even summer job, even as a, you know, recognized Schulich leader, that can be difficult for anyone. So I think that the people shouldn't get discouraged if it's May and they don't have a co-op or an internship or whatever, because that's very normal. I think in April or May, I, by some chance, got my co-op, but a lot of my friends, very talented friends, it was June and they were still looking for a co-op. Most of them eventually got an internship for the summer. But I remember, and even now, like, I get messages from people I know in first and second year saying, oh, I don't think I can find an internship because I don't have experience. But you do find it if you keep looking, if you really work hard on your applications and you really push your academic and leadership experience, you will find that first internship. And I think, as I said, first year, it's hard to see that that's going to happen, but I would tell my first year self to just relax about that and know that it's going to work out.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I can definitely piggyback on that idea, because I struggled myself for finding a co-op and internship, and it just requires a lot of persistence in putting your application out there, so I'm really glad that you touched upon that. So next we have Andy. So Andy, if you can also explain some of your biggest challenges in your undergraduate years, and taking a look back, if you were in your first year, what would you have told maybe your first year self?
Okay, thank you, Betty. So as a preface, I think that, like, as with many people in the audience, and I'm sure many of our panelists, I have this fear of failure. And, you know, it's like you want to work hard to make sure that everything is perfect, and your hard work should always pay off, and you should always do really well. And I think that's it's almost an expectation of myself. But there was one experience that really challenged it and kind of shattered it a little bit. And it shook me a lot, and I'm kind of grateful for it. So I'll talk a little bit about that one. So in second year, I did a summer internship in Montreal doing cancer research. And there I was involved in a project where we were looking at this motor protein that we knew was involved in cancer. And we had these chemical inhibitors that could inhibit the motor domain. It could stop it from moving. And so I was trying to evaluate, what do these chemical inhibitors do to the cancer cells? And so the best case scenario is you come up with some drug candidates, and it's all very exciting. So I was really pumped up. I was really excited, and I just went at it. And so I was designing my own experiments, and I was just planning experiments after the other. I ended up working, 70 to 80-hour weeks just to try to finish the project before I left in the summer. And I did finish the project, but I found out that the drugs did nothing. And so for me, I was devastated, right? It's like you have that expectation. You work really hard, you grind, and then you get great results. But here, that wasn't really under my control. As hard as I worked, that was the answer that we found, whether we were happy with it or not. And so for me, I had to take like the weekend off and just like go and soul search a little bit. But when I came back, I realized a few things. And I think one of them was that I wasn't doing my research and working that entire term as a means to an end. I wasn't persevering to try to find a cure for cancer or try to push these into the drug pipeline or anything. I mean, that would have been cool. That would have been great. It would have been very noble. But that is not the day-to-day motivation, right? I worked so much because I enjoyed it, and I was curious about the results of each experiment. And, I was learning and growing as a scientist each day. And so, I mean, that really made me appreciate the scientific process and, everything that comes along with it, and not just all the noble intentions that you have in the long term. And that's something that I was really lacking in first year. But another thing that I realized with that was a lot of these failed results, per se, they still provide a lot of insight. So here we had, this motor protein, and we stopped the motor, but its cancer-promoting function still continued. And so our drugs didn't work out, but we found something out about the protein, and it kind of refines our direction. And that's something that has actually been applicable to like my work with the Red Cross and my student organization stuff, because I was mentioning that they were very low stakes. There's not that much risk in a university setting, and so you can make these drastic changes and be like, let's try that and see if it works out. And if it fails, then you learn you can refine your direction, right? And that became one of my mottos near the end of second and third year, to try to fail fast and like fail and refine while the stakes are low, so that you don't have to when the stakes are high, right? And so that was a really formative moment, and it changed how I view what a challenge was. And I was able to reframe a challenge as more of a learning opportunity than something to be afraid of and kind of ward off by just working really hard. So that's something that I guess I would have liked to learn it earlier, but I'm glad I learned it in my undergrad.
Thank you so much, Andy, for sharing that. That's a very important lesson in terms of taking every opportunity and considering it as a means of learning, and taking failure not as such a horrible thing, and using it for benefit and for good. So thank you, Andy. Next we have Ella. So Ella, can you also share with us some of the difficulties that you had, or some of your biggest challenges in your undergraduate years, and what you would have told your first year self?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main challenges for myself that I'd like to talk about was actually in one of my first year courses, and that was just Intro to Computer Science. So coming into first year in university, I'd never done any computer programming. I didn't even really have a concept of what it was going into my first class. And I found the very first few lectures, the first month or so of the course, extremely intimidating. I felt like it was impossible and that there was no way I could catch up to the rest of the class, many of whom had been doing computer programming for fun for like over a decade on their own. And I found throughout the course, I gradually had to just chip away at all the different challenges that I was coming up with, work really hard on the assignments. I always made huge efforts to go talk to the professors and the TAs to make sure I understood the concept. And it was a huge hurdle to overcome, especially for the first few months when I was trying to learn and catch up on all the basics. But I ended up gradually, as I became more proficient with computer programming, and just from not necessarily viewing it as something horrible that I had to overcome, but as a challenge that I wanted to try to be able to achieve, I ended up really enjoying the course by the end of the semester. And computer programming actually became one of my favorite parts of my electrical engineering degree. and I've done 2 research terms that were pretty heavily based on computer science. So I found that that was something for me. A lesson that I learned was that when you go into a course, especially at the beginning of your degree, and it seems really intimidating, to not just back down on the subject and to really try to overcome and tackle that, because you never know what you'll end up really enjoying and what you might want to pursue later in some of your electives later on in your degree. So that was a really good experience for me, just struggling with the course in the beginning, but then being able to catch up and have it actually become one of my favorite parts of electrical engineering. And then also one other challenge I faced just over the course of the entire degree was really trying to achieve good time management. I like to be busy in general, and because I was really committed to trying to be involved with student groups, I definitely found that there were times where it was very challenging to be able to manage my time between doing well with my courses, with any research I had going on, with volunteering, and then with the student groups as well. So for me, in terms of time management, what I ended up doing that worked well, after trying some other methods as well, was I would try to plan out my weeks in advance. So I would sit down every Sunday and just plan out how much time I thought each task would take during the week and try to figure out which days I could work on which assignments, when I'd have meetings for student groups, etc. And I found it really helpful to try to plan out just a rough guideline in advance for the whole week and to be able to visually see what I have to accomplish that week. And then one final challenge I'd just like to briefly touch on was during my research term last summer in Germany. I had worked with the same lab group for the 2 first years during my summer of my undergraduate degree, and then moving to Germany for the summer and starting with a new research group there. I found it challenging because, of course, in different countries and with different cultures, there's definitely different ways of communicating in the workplace environment and holding meetings, updates, and the relation between like a supervisor and students who are working in labs as well. So I definitely found that a challenge for me to be able to adjust to working with a different lab group in a different culture as well. But that was a really good experience for me because it showed me how important it is to try to understand other cultures and all different places around the world as well. So I really enjoyed that experience overall, and I ended up really enjoying my project and working with the lab group in Germany. So I'm glad that I did the exchange there as well.
Thank you so much, Ella. I know that you talked about some of the challenges that you faced when you were in certain courses in your first year.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a little bit of tips as to what someone can do if they're feeling discouraged about a certain subject, and what they can do in the classroom or outside of the classroom to help them improve in that course?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the most important things, this is definitely something everyone's heard before, but really make an effort to go to all the lectures for the course and tutorials as well. So I found particularly in my first year classes, the tutorials, which I'm not sure if the word's the same in other universities, but basically where you go in small groups to work with like a TA or a graduate student, those were quite poorly attended in my first year classes. And I always found that when I was able to go to the tutorials, it was a great resource to be able to practice problems and just have a chance to speak to someone if you have any questions to ask. On that note as well, I think it's really good to try to attend office hours and get to know your professors. And I think just being able to just gradually chip away at the problems you have to deal with. So in my example, when I was doing computer programming, we would have an assignment that I'd be working on for like 3 to 4 weeks. So if I just sat down and tried to do it all at once, I just got so overwhelmed at the beginning of the term. But then as I gradually tried to like break it down into individual little pieces and get them working one at a time, that's what I found really worked for me. So that can definitely be extended to other courses as well throughout all of the sciences. But I think just trying to break down the problem that you're trying to solve, or like the material that you have to learn, into small sections is really helpful, because it just prevents you from feeling overwhelmed, which I found was always the problem in the computer science course.
Thank you so much, Ella. So next, Miguel, if you can also share some of your biggest challenges and what you may have done differently, knowing what you do now.
Well, I think one of my biggest challenges beginning the aerospace engineering program was knowing exactly where I would want to work and what I would want to do after the bachelor degree. And that's why I really wanted to explore different ideas and different things. But one of the things I think I would have liked to do differently is have an industry internship or a student exchange program. Because it really get to see different things and get to know different people, and really have a like a better feeling of what I like and what I wanted to do after, because it really took me until my third year with my section research internship to really know that I wanted to do a master's degree. So that is really a big challenge, and also being really involved in the student projects. Like Andy said, you have a fear of failures that really is there, because there's so much behind you. I mean, there's like 60 people working on the same project, don't want to let anybody down, and there's so much resources involved in this project. So you really want to deliver the best thing, the best product possible. And given that we won the competition before, there's a great deal of pressure to deliver and be at the top all the time. So yeah, because last year actually we had a little problem with the rocket, and it ended up crashing because the avionics got disarmed during flight. So I think it was a big letdown, but at the same time, when you fail like that, it really opens your eyes on the what is lacking in what you do and what you work on. And those areas become your areas of focus, and they can even become your strengths as you work on them. So that's really one thing that I learned from being involved in this project.
Okay, thank you so much, Miguel, and thank you to all our panelists who were able to share that with us. So it is clear that all of our Schulich Leader grads have flourished, and they've shaped their own careers. So just looking into the future now, Nicole, so looking into your next steps, what are some of your immediate career plans and some of the challenges that you're going to be facing very soon?
Yeah, sure. So right now I just graduated, and I sort of had this dream, as you saw from the aspiring data scientist title. I really wanted to work in data science, but I found, I started interviewing for full-time jobs in January, and it was actually quite difficult to get a position in data science, because a lot of times data science means different things at different companies, and sometimes the positions require a PhD. So it was difficult to kind of navigate that field and kind of figure out which positions were available and for someone of my background. But it was a really interesting experience. I actually interviewed companies for 6 months before I got the position that I'm starting in July. So in the end, I decided to go with an offer for a data scientist position at a fintech startup. So I'll start that in July, and I'm really excited about that. And I'll be doing some machine learning and some other things in the data science field and some business intelligence. And these are things I'm really excited about, and I've had some experience with in the past 2 years. So I'm very excited to really apply the computer science and statistics that I've learned over the past few years. And but that's not to say that I'm not considering more education. And this is another thing I would say, is that just because somebody wants to start working right after the bachelor's degree, that's not meaning that your learning or your education is over. Learning and education is a lifelong endeavor. So I am still considering very strongly to do a master's in a subject I'm interested in, like computer science. There are even some masters in data science now, or like applied analytics. So I have been looking into master's programs as well, but I plan to work for 1 to 2 years before starting a master's program. And, maybe I'll start my job and really, really enjoy it, and might do a master's in 5 years or not at all. But I'm sort of in a position where I'm open to more education, but I'm going to get some industry experience first and then go back to education, because there's no timeline on it. There's no reason why you can't go back in 5 years or in 2 years. And I think people tend to think they have to rush, or they think that when I'm 30, I'm no longer allowed to attend university. But actually, education is a lifelong endeavor, as I said. So I'm really excited about potentially doing a master's in data science. But for now, I just really want to get into the industry and continue the work experience that I've gained in these past 5 years.
Congratulations, Nicole. That's an amazing opportunity that you have there, and I'm really glad that you're not closing any of the doors for opportunities in terms of work experience, and I think you can gain so much from it alone. And you touched upon one of a critical point that it's all about lifelong learning, and that can be gained not only through school, it can be gained it can be manifested in all types of aspects of your life. So congratulations, Nicole. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you so much.
Andy, looking into some of the next stages of your life, what is your career plan looking like and some of your immediate challenges that you are about to hold?
Absolutely. So on the topic of lifelong learning, I think that's definitely applicable to me as well, though in a slightly different sense. So for the fall, I've locked into an MD PhD program at the University of Toronto, and there's 14 of us, and actually Alex Dhaliwal from McMaster, who's actually attending, shout out to Alex, is going to be one of my classmates for the next 8 years. But it's a program where you're doing medicine and a PhD at the same time, and so it's 8 years approximately, depending on how fast you finish your PhD, to get the degrees. And then you spend another 8 years doing your residency, fellowship, postdoc, or maybe a little bit more until you get a real job per se. And so I think a lot of people kind of view it as, you know, they're put off by the length because it's so long before you can actually hit the workforce. But for me, you know, I was choosing between medicine and an MD PhD, and I think my decision really stemmed from, you know, first of all, I'm very interested in research, and second of all, you know, just as you're not spending every moment of your undergrad thinking, I can't wait to graduate, or like, I can't wait till I get that degree in my hand, you know, I won't be spending my entire journey thinking, I can't wait until I become a doctor, because it's really about the process. Just as I've talked about with Montreal, if you see things as a means to an end, it's a really good way to set yourself up for disappointment. But if you can embrace every opportunity along the way, it makes for a very exciting journey, although it's technically long. So for the degree, I'm actually very interested in cancer, as my work terms with cancer might have shown, but I'm really interested now in cancer resistance. And so there are a lot of precision therapy trials where they're kind of sequencing your DNA and then finding the mutation and, you know, the aberrant protein that's driving the cancer, and they target that with chemotherapy. But so many of these successful cases, they'll still relapse. The cancer will come back because you might have not eradicated all the cancer stem cells, or the tumor might have evolved to gain resistance. And so that's something that I really want to look into. And in terms of the long term, a clinician scientist career is normally about 20% of your time in the clinic, and then about 80% of your time trying to develop better treatments or understand the disease better in the research lab. And so 16 years from now, that's kind of what I'm looking towards. But I'm very excited overall for my degree. And just to add to a point that Nicole was saying in terms of just really embracing the learning opportunities and not kind of needing to rush as much. When I chose to go to SFU, I was very familiar with the environment already, starting the Red Cross Club. I had all these opportunities open to me because of the Schulich, and I hit the ground just sprinting. But when I chose U of T for my MD PhD, my other option was UBC, and that was very similar to my SFU decision. You know, I was already at BC Cancer, and I already had a supervisor. I would start in May, and I would hit the ground with my feet running and try to get through it as fast as possible. But this time, I saw more room for personal growth in Toronto and career development at U of T. And, you know, the program director was actively telling me to slow down and not rush so much, which at first I was a little bit uncomfortable, but I kind of realized that, you know, choosing that option where you're slower in your research doesn't necessarily mean slowing down. I'd be working just as hard and just as fast, but it would be in a different lane, right? One where instead of just focusing on research and getting things done, I would push my comfort zone a little bit and pay attention to other aspects of personal growth. So that's something that really influenced my decision. And, you know, it's different from my decision for my undergrad. And I think there's a time for each. But I think it's something, you know, it took me 16 days to come to that realization. So maybe it's something to consider when, you know, the attendees inevitably get their offers for their top choice master's programs and such. Whether you want to focus on just getting things done and blazing through the career, or those other aspects of your personal growth. So yeah, sorry for the ramble, but that's all.
No, thank you so much. And I think everyone's highlighting some really important points, but focusing on the process rather than just the end outcome is really important. And I'm pretty sure all of us can agree that 4 years of, 4 or 5 years, depending on 5, 6 years of your undergraduate years, it may seem like a long time a bit back when we were just entering from high school. But now that you have all completed it, I'm sure it went by pretty quickly for you. So focusing on the process and making sure that you gain all of the opportunities and learning experiences is very important, and I'm glad that you touched upon that. Thank you, Andy. So Ella, if you also can speak of your future career plans, that would be lovely.
Sure. So looking forward to next year, I'm starting a PhD program, again in electrical engineering, and I decided to go to Stanford University for that. So the program is approximately 5 years, and I'm looking to do research in the area. I'm really thinking of doing microelectronic fabrication, which is something that I just discovered this past year through taking a technical elective, and it's something I'd be interested in pursuing. And I also really want to find a research topic or a thesis that has applications to medicine or to biomedical engineering, because that's something I've really enjoyed with my research experience so far, and I think is a really valuable combination between engineering and medicine. And actually at Stanford University, they have a program for first-year PhD students, which is called the lab rotation program. So during my first year, I'll be doing 3 separate 3-month research terms with 3 different lab groups at Stanford. And then after you do those lab rotations, you're able to declare who's going to be your supervisor for the next 4 years. So I'm really looking forward to participating in the lab rotations, because I think it's really important to get that just short amount of research experience to be able to interact with each lab group and to see if the research area is a good fit with my interests. So I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of that in my first year. And then looking forward to, after my graduation from the PhD program in approximately 5 years, I'm considering kind of 2 different things right now. So I'm either interested in pursuing a career in academia after my PhD, and then I'm also interested in opportunities for entrepreneurship eventually. So I think Stanford will be a really exciting area to kind of see what that's like for electrical engineering and to see whether it's something that I'm interested in pursuing myself. So those are my immediate plans, and I'll see what comes after the PhD.
Congratulations, Ella, for Stanford. And a quick question, how was the application process like for you to get into Stanford?
Sure, yeah. So I applied to lots of different universities across the United States and Canada as well. So I definitely found that there were some differences. So in the United States, it's more common to apply for either a Master's of Engineering, which is considered a terminal degree, so like you wouldn't go on to do a PhD after that, or you do a direct to PhD program, which is different in Canada, where most students would do a master's and then a PhD. So I was doing applications for master's programs in Canada and for PhD programs in the United States. And then for the programs in the US, I had to do the GRE test, which is similar to the SAT, but for graduate school. So it's reading, writing, and math. So that was a challenge for me to study, not so much for the math section, but I definitely did some vocab studying before doing the GRE test. And then it was mostly just essays for the applications in terms of research experience, what your research goals are, and why you want to attend that particular university, and then just reference letters. So the application process was very, very similar for all the different schools, but definitely they were asking different questions in the essays, and you definitely had to demonstrate why you were interested in attending each university.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ella.
And I would definitely recommend for anyone who's interested in pursuing graduate studies to apply to many different schools, and if possible, to try to visit them. I had the chance to go to Stanford for their graduate admit days, and I also visited Cornell and Princeton as well. And I think that was really valuable for me to kind of be able to picture yourself in that particular university, and to also be able to meet some of the faculty and current students to see if you think it would be a good fit.
Thank you so much, Ella, for that insight. Yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would be interested in pursuing graduate school, and I know all of the panelists here would be great people to speak about graduate school and what the process is like. So thank you so much for sharing that, Ella. Next, we have Miguel. Miguel, Similarly, what looking into your immediate career plans and what the next stages hold for you.
Well, thank you very much. I just love the video feed, so I think you can't see me right now, but I hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Well, for the next, given that I already started my master's degree, for the next year and a half or so, I'll be working on developing new tools for the design of aircraft. So that's very interesting, and I think it's very fun to have this kind of applied research project. And beyond that, I think, same as Ella, I'm considering two options. Probably first, doing a PhD would depend a lot on the subject and the opportunities that arise in the following year. So I'm really open to anything that can happen, and I'll start looking on different subjects and different schools in the following year also. And on the other side, I'm also looking into entrepreneurship, and well, obviously one field that really interests me is the space industry. So I'm looking into the new space age that is evolving right now. So the nanosatellites, space debris, those kind of problematics that are being developed and addressed. So I think it would be really interesting to get involved in that and have some ideas, maybe get a startup and start working on that stuff with some of my friends that I met at university and in other schools. So that's pretty much my plan. Not really fixed yet, but looking at different options and seeing what happens and what comes along in the following years.
Well, you definitely have a head start, Miguel, on your succeeding in your career goals. You have a lot on your resume right now, so congratulations, Miguel, as well. So thank you to all of our panelists. Now I'm just going to open it up to any questions from everyone. So let me see. So if you can share any questions, or if anyone has any questions, please feel free to share them with us now while we have our panelists.
Okay, we have one question here.
Okay. I can't seem to see it.
So Tashita Patel is asking me what various opportunities are out there for data scientists. That's a really good question, and you're going to like the answer because there are so many opportunities right now, and they're only growing. Every industry, every company is starting to leverage data. It really is the new currency. And I mean, the reason that Google and Facebook are such powerful companies is because they have ridiculously large data sets, big data, so to speak. I was interviewing with Facebook actually, and one thing they kept saying in the interviews was they have so much data, they don't have enough people to go through it. They don't have enough people to find the trends and actually leverage that data. So companies are hiring data scientists like crazy right now, and it's a good reason for it because with our sort of digital world, it really is the new currency, the new way to run a business. You've heard of data-driven business. Well, it really is the way that the world is going. So statistics, data science, and computer science, any of those skills, even if it's just, even if it's not an explicit degree, even just people having like data science or statistics skills on the side, I know a lot of people who have been using that already to further their careers. So lots of opportunities for you if you're interested.
Actually, just to add to what Nicole said, in the medical field, it's also huge. like there's so much of medicine that's changing because of machine learning and how we're able to better use data, but especially in research. There's so many biologists who are trained as molecular biologists and doing wet lab stuff, and then halfway down their career they have to catch up and start learning statistics and start learning how to use R and going on websites like DataCamp and doing those tutorials, just because there's so much data now in any field, especially in medicine, from my experiences. And so, yeah, I would just really echo what Nicole said. Like, I'm spending the summer partially on DataCamp and like brushing up on machine learning and R and things like that.
Okay.
So I saw another question from Isabel that popped up. So she was asking if any of the panelists had valuable mentors in choosing which path to pursue after their undergraduate degree. So for me personally, I think one thing that was really valuable was talking to some current graduate students to see what their work was like, being able to shadow some students, and during my final research term working in collaboration with master's and PhD students as well to see like what their day was like and what their degree and just kind of day-to-day research was. So that was really valuable for me. In particular, during my second research term, I was working really closely with a master's student in biomedical engineering, and I found it really valuable to talk to him and to see like how he was incorporating both engineering and medicine into his master's degree, which is something that I aspire to do as well. So that was really valuable. And then as well, just working with some of the TAs that I had during my final year and talking to them about their own research experience in the graduate program. So I think talking to current people in the field that you're kind of thinking of going into after undergrad is really valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Ella said. On my research term, I also met a lot of master's, PhD, and postdoc students. And even during my co-op terms, I met some people that were still doing postdocs in academia, and just seeing their career paths and seeing what they're doing and just trying to imagine myself doing that, or just seeing what their life is like, what their daily work is like. I think it really inspires you, and it also shows you what you don't like. Sometimes you envision yourself in a particular job or career or program, and then you see it, from a day-to-day perspective, and you realize it's not what you expected. So the more you can involve yourself with, those graduate students, even like, students that are graduating and getting jobs, the more you can talk to them about what they're doing, or professors learning how they got to where they are. Some of them have had industry experience as well. Just talking to them and learning about other people is really a good way to get ideas for yourself.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone just said. So I totally agree. That was the same thing with my decisions. I was just picking the brains of all the people I knew who were even slightly relevant, just to get as many perspectives as possible on it. And I think a lot of my professors and my supervisors who know me better are also really valuable resources, because they kind of know what I'm like, and they know, whether it's a fit for me almost. So everyone, absolutely everyone who is even slightly related, I think is very useful and is a great resource.
Yeah, I would agree with that also. And I think, my mentors throughout my life have been teachers I respected and with which I really enjoyed talking and having discussions, and just people who just like told things that I liked to hear, because they were inspiring, and really what they said was really fun. And also like older students and people like that who were successful and really looked after me for some reason because they liked the way I worked or stuff like that. Really just the people I hang out with were inspiring in a sense. So yeah, those were the mentors too that stuck with me.
Thank you, everyone. Is there any other questions?
Yes, there's a question from Catherine Hall, and she is asking, is there anything you would recommend considering aside from the length of the program when deciding between an MD degree and an MD PhD degree? And so I'll just comment on that very quickly. I think in terms of career trajectory, they tend to be pretty different. Like with an MD, you can still do research, but an MD PhD, when you're going to become a clinician scientist, you're not spending that much time in the clinic. A lot of it really is a research focus, 75 to 80%. And so you really have to be sure that you're interested in doing this research and you're interested in integrating the two. I think that the length doesn't actually matter that much when you enjoy what you're doing. And so that wasn't a really big factor for me. But there's also many ways to go about with things, right? If you do an MD degree, it doesn't mean you can't pick up a PhD later on, and it doesn't mean that you can't, pursue a research career as well. So I think in the end, it's about, how much do you like each aspect of medicine versus the research, and how would you like to incorporate that in your future career? And so hopefully that kind of addresses the question.
Okay, so Mark Kramer has a question. He just said, you talked about how it's possible to complete a master's later on in your career. Would you say this move puts you at a disadvantage compared to those who pursue a master's immediately upon completing undergrad? So of course, I've thought a lot about this question over the years. It's very relevant. I would say you have to define what you mean by disadvantage, and it also is very specific to the type of work you're doing. For instance, if you want to go into a research-based position, like you want to be a research data scientist, first of all, I mean, many of those positions are, they do require a PhD, but some of them are master's or PhD. If you want to do a career specifically in research and you know that 100%, I would say, yes, just do the master's right after your undergrad. Get your research connections through your professor, through your department and university, and then, head out into your research career from there. But if you mean disadvantage more from an industry perspective, whether that's financial or just like moving up in your career, eventually becoming like a data science manager, I would say no, because everybody at a company, let's say a startup or a medium-sized company, you're on a team of data scientists. Some person might have done a master's in your team, but their research topic, their thesis, is not necessarily directly related to the work you're doing. And maybe as a undergraduate who has done co-op or that kind of thing, maybe you actually have more hands-on work experience than that person. So you're starting in the same role with slightly different backgrounds, but you're really on the level playing field, and you both have different advantages. So I would say, yeah, if you're in the industry and you maybe want to do a master's 3-4 years down the road, maybe less, you're not at a disadvantage. It's nothing to worry about. If you want to wait 10 years, yeah, that might put you at a disadvantage. You're better off doing it, after your undergrad than 10 years from now. But if you just really want to see if data science is what you want to do, because it's a very buzzword, right? It's very fancy, kind of a sexy industry, right? You have to see if it's what you want to do. So you might be better off if you're not 100% sure, working for a company as a data scientist or a data analyst for 2 years, 1 to 2 years, seeing if it's really what you like, and then you have a better idea of what you actually want your master's to be. Because maybe you don't want to do a master's in data science. Maybe you want to do an MBA after that because you realize you want to do things more from a business perspective. So I would say it's definitely that sort of research versus industry perspective. And then financially, there is a small increase, obviously, in the salary for someone with a master's versus bachelor's in the field, but it's not enough to warrant you worrying about it.
So I have a question from Kyra, and the question is, what did you look for in the MD PhD program that you felt was missing from just a PhD program? And so I think that's a great question. That's something I was thinking a lot of in making my decision, because you have to split your time between medicine and PhD and research while getting double the training, and you might just be bad at both, right? So you're running that risk because you're not spending all of your time focused on one thing. That being said, I think an MD PhD is more than just balancing both things together. I think there's a lot of synergy to it. You know, the research gives you a different perspective on the medicine. I have a lot of friends who are in med school and they're just memorizing kind of clinical presentation, how to treat it, and they're not really paying as much attention to the mechanisms. And the PhD gives you that more inquisitive perspective. And for your research, an MD, you know, it tells you what's actually going on in the clinic, and it provides a lot of context to the questions that you ask. I've seen a lot of research it's kind of related to cancer or like kind of related to this disease, and you mention it so you can get more grant money, but it's not as directly tied as it could be, and it's not as focused as it could be if you really had the perspective of what's going on in the clinic. And so I think that there's a lot of synergy when you do both degrees, as opposed to just having to balance both and having less time for each. Also, you know, if you have any other questions, please just feel free to message me on Facebook or something. I'm happy to start a chat there.
Any other questions? Sorry, I'm not able to see any of the questions on my screen, so that's why I've been quite silent here. So if there are any other questions, let me know.
There's nothing in the Q&A. We answered all the ones there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say also what Andy said. If anyone has any questions about what I said today about co-ops, internships, or data science, feel free to Facebook message me or add me on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. So
great, same for aerospace industry. If you want to talk to me about it, I'll be more than glad to answer you. I'm sorry, I just got logged out of the video feed, so I think I should go right now, well, soon. Yeah, sorry.
Great, no worries at all. I guess it's time to wrap it up. I would like to thank all of our panelists, Nicole, Andy, Miguel, and Ella, for taking the time to share some of your experiences and updating us on your career plans, because I think it's one of the most important things to connect as Schulich leaders and to hear from some of the beautiful and amazing success stories that you do have. So thank you so much for your insight, your advice, your knowledge, your experiences, and this was very crucial. And at least for me, I can say that it was such a great learning experience. And I'd also like to thank David for coordinating this event. The Leader Talks are an incredible opportunity for us all to connect. So thank you so much, David. Yeah, so I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.